Hello all. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. First of all, I would like to thank each one of you for joining this webinar today. Uh, Before we start, if there is any connectivity issue from my end, as I'm working from home, I will try my best to rejoin again. Even otherwise, the team at Progress will share the recording of the webinar with all of you. Okay, let me first introduce myself. Hi, I am Prarthana Bhatt, working as a senior data scientist at Progress. I have been working in the IoT space for quite some time now. Hmm, my experience is in building IoT solution, mostly in the domain of oil and gas and manufacturing. In this journey, I have learned a lot about assets, processes, and their behaviors. The intent of this webinar is to share my experience on identifying actionable insights in predictive maintenance. And there is always um, a competition between causal analysis and a predictive analysis, and how we can actually balance them, or how do we choose what approach we want. The agenda goes like this: brief on IoT, the need for predictive maintenance, two stories on industrial IoTs, where we can compare prediction versus causation, and finally how to balance between them. I will end this webinar with questions. Uh, to start with, what is industrial IoT? Industrial IoT, from the name, Industrial Internet of Things. In a plant, when most of your devices are interconnected, they generate a huge amount of data. This data can further be analyzed to create some insights, which enables the plant managers and operators to take preventive and corrective actions. This entire ecosystem is called IoT. IoT is a big umbrella under which there will be many use cases. For example, predictive maintenance, smart metering, asset tracking, fleet management, connected vehicles, and many more. In this use case, we will be focusing on the predictive maintenance aspect. Okay, so what is predictive maintenance? Predictive maintenance is predicting the maintenance activity of an asset. Uh, every asset needs a regular maintenance, because maintenance is an integral part of the asset's life cycle. Now the question is, when there are scheduled maintenances in factories, why is there a need for predictive maintenance? In spite of everything being in place, these factories or plants or manufacturing units per se do experiences faults, breakdowns, or unusual behaviors in their assets, which do cost them some dollars. So to avoid this, they want to go into predictive maintenance. Now, what is predictive maintenance? Per se, if I can predict a fault in an asset, or let's say I can predict an unusual behavior in an asset, then I will be able to say that, okay, there should be a maintenance activity much earlier than what you have scheduled. So I'm predicting a maintenance activity for them. And this enables the operators to decide on uh, how they can manage the cost and how they can reduce the regular maintenance activities to like optimally reduce the frequency of activities to smaller ones, smaller numbers. Because we are talking about asset failure, so let's see the definition for asset failure. When do you call that asset is failing? When the asset doesn't function as expected, we term it as an asset failure. In a plant, the assets are something like a heating kiln or a dryer or a mixer or a generator, etc. A conveyor belt is also an asset. So we have multiple assets like this. And if these don't function as expected, then we call it asset failure. What is a product failure? Let's say there is a cookie manufacturing company, and a cookie that was manufactured in a batch has turned out to be burnt cookie. Then we consider that entire batch as a failure. So this is called as a product failure. Because we have been talking about prediction and causation, let's also look at the definitions for them. Prediction, in simple words, is a statement about future. So if I say it's going to rain tomorrow, or if I say it's going to be a sunny day, it will be like, okay, stock prices are going to come down tomorrow, or your asset will fail tomorrow. So these are all the statements about the future. What is causation? Now, causation is, will I be able to tell a reason why the stock prices come down? So I say, okay, there was a big news yesterday on some of the investments, or government has made a big news, so that is why there is a the stock prices are coming down. Then this is a causal relationship. Similarly, in IoT, I can say if the asset is will need some maintenance activity, because I saw that, okay, there were the temperatures in the heating drum were too high, because the environment temperature was not controlled. The plant temperature was not controlled. So this is the cause for the failure. Let us go in some details. I will walk you through two use cases, one from an asset point of view and another from a product point of view. The first use case is on the asset point of view. The use case is to predict the next maintenance activity for the asset. Let's say a plant has around 20 to 30 assets, and on the right hand side you can see a chart which shows the chances for failure for an asset. So pump has a chance of 90% failure, motor has a chance of 55% failure, shaft and dryer have lesser percentage of chance. So this is a snapshot of a predictive maintenance solution given to your customer. The plant operator looks at this chart. So there will be an alert created whenever the percentages go above 50, let's say. And when an alert comes, the operator looks at the chart and says, okay, let me schedule a maintenance activity for the pump. Okay, and he decides to stop the production for a day. He will schedule it after 2 days, but he decides to stop the production for a day. And once the maintenance activity was done, he estimates the cost, downtime cost, and the maintenance cost. And he figures out that the maintenance cost was much lower than the downtime cost. Now the customer seems happy. Now the question is, why did he, immediately decide on, going for a maintenance activity, just looking at one chart, right? So when this suggestion was given to them, prior to that, there was a model with a certain accuracy that was presented to them, and the accuracy of the solution said it is 98% accurate. That means if 100 times I'm telling that your asset is going to fail, 98 times I'm going to be correct. So there is some level of trust, right? After a couple of months, there is another alert generated, and now there is a new asset that turns out to be faulty, that is dryer. Now the plant operator thinks, okay, I can schedule a maintenance activity for the dryer. They have to stop the production for 2 days now. When they estimate the cost, they realize that yes, maintenance costs are obviously lesser to downtime costs. But the question is, he's thinking, I could have done this maintenance like 2 months earlier, right? I just did a maintenance for the pump, and I could have also maintained my dryer at the same time, so that I didn't have to stop my production for 3 days. One day, like 2 months prior to that, and 2 days now. In a 2 month span, they had to stop the production for 3 days. But if they had combined this, then they could have done it only in 2 days. Now he tries to figure out what if this solution triggers an alert after a month and says, okay, heating drum fails now. So they can't go on doing a repetitive maintenance based on these faults or based on these predictions. So they dig down into the solution, and they figured out that uh, there are 4 sensors that are critical for the process. Now these 4 sensors are like exhaust air temperature, exhausted RPM, vibration, and outlet temperature, let's say. These have come out as an output of an importance score from a model. This, if it's a tree-based model, then you call it as importance score. If it's a regression model, you can consider it as estimates. Now, what will the operator do with these sensors? He has to still go and drill down into each of these sensors, their patterns in the history, see if there were any anomalies in those sensors, and figure out what has happened. So he decides to go and look at those readings. When he looks at these readings, he says there is some unusual behavior, but he's not very sure what has happened. So he decides, should I invest some more time in RCA? So RCA is nothing but a root cause analysis. In a manufacturing plant or a oil and gas industry anywhere, uh, if there needs an RCA to be done, then there is good amount of work and time invested. People have to go and question each of the operators, plant managers, and they have to go and review each of the process, document it, and they finally come to a conclusion that okay, some of one of the behavior of an asset or the process has caused another asset or a process to fail. Because they have to invest a lot of time, they feel that this solution has actually not solved all of their problems. It's only able to alert them that there is a fault. It's able to show them what are the important sensors that are actually supporting the prediction values. But the actual problem of finding the cause or spend reducing the time that they are investing in correcting the failure has not been sufficient. This is where the causation comes to rescue. So what is a causal analysis? Just some time back, we were discussing about root cause analysis, and root cause analysis are nothing but documents on all the causes for earlier failures. Let's say you have the data for doing a predictive maintenance for around 2 years, then you should also focus on getting the RCA documents for the last 2 years. Okay, so the sensor data that we talk about are all the sensors that were installed around the assets. They either measure temperature, pressures, RPMs, vibrations, lubrication, etc., etc. They'll be measuring all of this. But RCA is a textual document which will give you information on why a certain process had failed on a particular day, who were the operators who were running the procedures, what was the real cause, and many more details. In a causal analysis, it is very, very important to combine these two results and formulate them. For example, a simple way to do it here, the three causes from domain, when you talk to operators or plant managers, you figure out that the three main causes for a fault are contamination, lubrication, and overheating. There will be many more causes in the list. And when you collect data and analyze both of them together, you have come to a conclusion that contamination causes whenever whenever there was a contamination, the exhaust air temperature or exhaust air RPM and outlet air temperature did have a lot of variance or were anomalous or had an unusual behavior. Similarly, for lubrication, if lubrication was a cause, then then you see that the vibration sensors and the exhaust air RPM are also are having fluctuations, or they have turned to be anomalous. Similarly, for overheating, this establishing this relationship between contamination and the temperatures, or lubrication and the sensor values, is called a causal relationship. Uh, Let me make it very clear that contamination, lubrication, and overheating are not sensor values. They are just causes or a tag, and the sensor values were the list that I have displayed below. Once the causal analysis is done, let's say this is the chart for showing a causality score, where contamination, corrosion, vibration, overheating, lubrication, and overcurrent were showed. And we see that contamination and corrosion have a very high score. Uh, when the operator looks at this causality chart, what happens? They have a validation for their knowledge. So the data says contamination and corrosion might have caused the failure. Now the operator can also utilize his domain knowledge and validate if these findings were correct. If there is a uh, win-win situation, then we can have a feedback in our system which can say yes, the operator has agreed with this, which can be further used in our causal model to help get better insights. Now we have spoken about causes, and we have figured out, okay, the corrosion and the contamination has caused the asset to fail. But is this the root cause? That's the next question the operator has, because identifying the root cause is very important to prevent further failures. To do a root cause, what we have to do is uh, we have to do an causal analysis now for the contamination corrosion, because we have identified it as a cause and that becomes our target now. And we look at all the sensor values again and all the other causal factors again, and we establish a relationship. This will be a recursive procedure, and after we once we are done with this recursive procedure, we might end up in having a correct root cause for the analysis, root cause for the failure. It is not always possible to get a perfect root cause, but at least the solution should have the capability to go as much deep possible and find out root cause for the analysis. This was the end of use case one. So we have seen that if there was only a prediction and let's say an importance score out of your model, and there were some trends of your sensors, it really doesn't help the industry to solve their biggest problem. So there is an obvious need of a causation or a causality analysis to improve your solution. The second use case that I would like to talk about is reducing scrap for a coil manufacturer. This is a quality related problem. Uh, so let us look at some definitions before I explain you the analysis. What is a scrap? So scrap is when a coil is being manufactured, if the number of faults in a coil goes beyond a threshold, then we consider it as scrap. So let's say the length of the coil is 2 kilometers, and the wire can have only 10 faults per kilometer. So it can have 220 faults, not more than that. But if your faults go above 20, then you consider that entire coil as a scrap coil. Now, what are these faults? How do you tag that the coil had 20 faults? So to tag it, there are some quality parameters which you will look at, and if those quality parameters go beyond ranges, you would consider it as a fault. In this example, for a coil manufacturer, that's a copper coil manufacturer, the quality parameters that were tested are current at a specified voltage, dimensions like thickness and diameter of the wire. If there are blisters on the wire, that is also a quality parameter. So these will be measured at a continuous rate, as well as the entire process has an enabling section, a heating section, and a cooling section. All of these sections do have their respective sensors, and they would be measuring data at every 10 seconds. When we deploy a fault prediction solution for them, this is a snapshot of the prediction for the coils. Uh, let's say we are at coil 0, and the prediction for coil 1 is there will be 20 faults in coil 1. The prediction for coil 2 is there will be 90 faults, and for the coil 3 that is 70 faults. Let's say the threshold for the coil was 20. So we will consider that coil 1 is not faulty, but coil 2 and coil 3, which is going to come in the future, might turn out to be faulty. Now the operator, if the operator decides, let's say he wants to stop the production process because the predictions have come, and the prediction, let's assume the prediction model score was also very high, and he stops the process, that is actually going to scrap the current coil that he's manufacturing. And because he's stopping and he wants to do some maintenance activity, or he wants to review the process, then he will waste some amount of time in which they could have manufactured 1 or 2 coils, right? So he thinks for a while, and then he thinks, okay, can I validate my findings? He wants to know, he wants to look back and see if all the processes are fine. Was there an unusual behavior? Only then he wants to decide on stopping the process. So he goes further and he looks at some charts from the solution, and he figures out that he's not seeing any unusual pattern in temperatures or blisters or varnish temperatures anywhere. Everything looks normal for him. Now he's thinking, the solution is telling me that there is going to be a fault, but I'm not able to see any fault, or I'm not able to see any unusual behavior. My knowledge says that everything is normal. So do I want to invest a time in RCA? I don't think so. RCA is generally done when they are very sure that something is going faulty, or there is already a fault happened, they want to correct it, or they want to prevent it, then they do it. So he says, okay, I don't want to look into an RCA. So if our solution was only till here, then it was not helping this operator as well. But if your solution did have a causal analysis, which was something like this, let's say, the three causes that can uh, result in a product failure, or a coil that is not proper, is improper enamel. Enamel is like an insulation on the wire. uh, Wearing of the drawing bit is like when you want to extend your wire, change the thickness from one of like higher thickness to lower thickness, like 1 mm to maybe 0.1 mm. If you want to do that, then you use a drawing bit to pull it. And the last one is a manual intervention. So manual intervention generally happens in a plant if an operator looks at, if he feels that okay, something is wrong, or if the wire is not in the hinge, or the enamel thickness was thickness visually, when he looked at the thickness, he felt okay, the thickness is too much, the enamel will not go proper. Any of these observations, the operators do have the freedom to go and do some minor changes to correct it, because they are very experienced engineers. They have been working in this industry for many years. Their knowledge is used to correct all of these problems. In a in a causal analysis, you can see that improper enamel can whenever there is an improper enamel, you should see an inlet and outlet temperature fluctuations, or there should be very high variance in them. If the problem is with the drawing bit, then you should see blisters on surface. So any quality parameter that is showing the number of blisters, or the thickness of the wire, or something like that, there should be fluctuations in those sensors. If there is a manual intervention, then you should see problems in varnish temperature or exhaust air temperature. So this relationship, whatever I'm describing here, uh, initially needs to be validated with the domain expert or with the plant managers and operators, because the initial relationships do make a difference in a causal analysis. From this, we can figure out that okay, varnish temperature and varnish RPM were high in our example. So the cause could be manual intervention. So now, if there was a manual intervention, and the process, what can be the actions taken in a plant? So an operator can just restart the process if there was a manual intervention, and they have a doubt because the solution is telling that it might turn out to be faulty. He can decide to restart the process immediately. When this happens, the only loss that he's having is the current coil that is being manufactured might be considered as scrap, but none of the future coils will be considered as scrap. Let's say we did not have a causal analysis, and he decides to stop the production. Then he would have really incurred a loss of 2 to 3 days of production, because he decides to maintain any of the assets. If the causal analysis suggested that there was improper enamel or wearing of the drawing bit, then that needs a maintenance or a part replacement. From this example, I wanted to show you guys that taking actions from operators, like whether a part replacement is required, or whether a maintenance is required, or I can just restart the process, or I can change the wire that is going into the production line. These are all the actions that the operators take, and the causal analysis actually drives these actions. If the causal analysis is not accurate, or the customer doesn't trust in the causal analysis, then they will not be able to take right actions. Uh, so we have been talking about causal analysis for quite some time now, and uh, we also agree that when there is a competition between predictive capability and causal analysis, at least in the area of IIoT, causal analysis always has an upper hand. Your solution will be more trusted by your customers when compared to the other. So why do you think this data-driven causal analysis is important? Because root cause analysis was always there from last so many years. The main reasons for this is aging workforce. So if you know that in the last 2 decades or last 3 decades, you can say that all the youth is moving towards computer science and electronics background. They do not actually go into mechanical or chemical engineering, and because of which there is no younger workforce in the company, and the older workforce will retire soon. So there will be a lot of or there is a lack of domain knowledge in the industry. So there is a real need of a data driven causal analysis or a data driven predictive maintenance solution for them. Second important thing is the complexity of the equipment. Now in the last 10 to 20 years, the equipments have been so much so sophisticated. They have so many features, so it is very difficult to have a manual troubleshooting for such assets, where an automated or an AI based solution is very much important. Last is the inaccuracies in traditional root cause analysis. Traditional root cause analysis involves a lot of people, a lot of talking, a lot of brainstorming, discussions, and figuring out why it happened, when it happened, who was responsible. This kind of ends in a blame game scenario, because of which they do not end up with the right root cause output. But if there is a solution, a solution like a automated computer is telling you, okay, then this is the cause, then people generally will not be able to argue or fight with the other co-workers, like, why are you blaming me for the problem and all that. So this problem also gets solved by such a solution. Um, Finally, I want to talk about this is from a data science or a solution perspective, how we can balance between the predictions and the causations. Let's say I have there are 4 models that I'm explaining. Let's say I have built one model for predictive maintenance, which is like 99% accurate. And I have some complex Ensemble models or neural networks inside. And I say this model is not explainable, but it is like 99% accurate. You can use this. This model is not acceptable in IoT or solutions, or at least in predictive maintenance, it's not acceptable. Explainability is must in any of your solutions. The next model is my model is 90% accurate, and I don't see there are any important sensors which have come out from my model, or there are no good estimates. The problem with this model is either you have missed out on some sensor values or sensor readings, or you have missed out on creating some important features for the model, because of which you are not finding any significance. Significance is very important. So if I say that a temperature doesn't have any significance in the fault failure, then how are you actually telling that there is going to be a fault, right? So there should be some significance with your sensors. Either you add more sensors or you engineer more features if you have a solution like this to improve it. Third is my model is 90% accurate, but there are 100 influential factors. All these 100 sensors are important. You should consider reviewing all of them. The problem with this solution is it is humanly not possible for a plant manager, whenever there is an alert, he cannot go and look at all the 100 sensors, or he cannot. When you have 100 sensors, you can establish complex causal relationships. So there are 10 sensors which will go and which will go and ingest a cause, and it is not possible for the plant manager to verify, validate whether all of this is right. So you have to reduce your factors. Either you can use some dimensionality reduction techniques, or you engineer some new features using these 100 important features that has come out. The last is my model is 85% accurate, and I have 5 influential factors, or you can have up to 20 influential factors. It's a rough number. You can decide it based on your customer. This is a sound model. It is obviously it requires an improvements in accuracy, but on the causal analysis perspective, it looks good. If you have up to 20 factors that are influential, you can establish a relationship with at least with 10 to 12 causes, and you do not have to worry about getting a 99% accurate model, because if you have a 90% accurate model also, heuristic rules and domain knowledge will obviously have some weightage, and it can take up your accuracies from 90 to 99, 98 to 99% easily. Okay, with this, I have come to an end of this webinar. I hope this webinar was knowledgeable and helpful. I'm available for questions now.